Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack complex topics to give you the clearest insights. Today, we're diving into YouTube's exciting yet surprisingly contentious new AI auto-dubbing feature. Our deep dive extracts key insights from, a really interesting discussion featured on the MKBHD channel. It gives us a great creator's perspective on this whole tech leap. So our mission today is to explore how this AI system impacts not just, content strategy for creators, but also the fundamental user experience. It really is a classic double-edged sword, and we're going to try and dig into both sides of that.
Okay, let's unpack this. To kick us off then, what exactly is YouTube's automatic dubbing feature? What was the big idea?
Yeah, so at its core, it's an AI-powered system. It's designed to translate and then dub videos into multiple languages. And what's particularly interesting or maybe tricky is how it automatically plays that dubbed version for a viewer, often based on things like their region or their phone's language settings. Okay, and the intention behind it sounds pretty positive, right? Like, the goal is to increase accessibility and global reach. We're talking support for quite a few languages too: French, German, Hindi, Indonesian, Italian, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish. Lots of major ones.
Absolutely. The aspiration was definitely noble.
Yeah.
Bridge those language barriers. But as our source material really highlights, the execution, that's where things got complicated. It quickly revealed some critical flaws, particularly around the user experience and how much control creators actually have.
Right. So to really get a handle on these flaws, maybe let's look at how someone like MKBHD actually tested this out. They tried different things, didn't they? Like professional voice actors for better accuracy. So that took, about a week?
Yeah, about 7 days turnaround for the professional stuff. And then they also experimented with AI voice cloning. That was much faster, like within 24 hours, but as you'd expect, maybe less accurate, less nuanced.
So what did they learn from trying those different approaches? How did that shape their strategy?
Well, what's fascinating is how their thinking evolved. Initially, they looked at dubbing for regions with huge viewership, like India. Makes sense. But then they did a pretty significant pivot.
Oh.
Yeah, instead of just doubling down on those big existing audiences, they actually targeted smaller, sort of untapped markets, places like Russia and Japan. The idea was specifically to expand their reach into new areas, maybe without disrupting or annoying their core English-speaking audience too much.
Ah, okay. And this is where the unexpected consequences really started popping up, isn't it? What actually happened when YouTube started automatically pushing this feature more widely?
Exactly. That's when the friction really started. Viewers suddenly found videos just playing in dubbed languages they didn't necessarily want or need. And it was often just based on their IP address or region setting.
Oh, wow. So imagine you want the original English.
Right, and trying to switch it back. It often meant digging through really obscure settings, and you had to do it for each individual video. It wasn't a global setting.
That sounds incredibly frustrating.
It caused immense friction. And the impact on longtime viewers, people who've been following the channel for ages, it was profound. Many felt this real disconnect from the creator's actual voice, their delivery, the emotion, which is often a huge part of why people subscribe in the first place. There was one quote in the material of viewers saying something like, "It's making watching your articles super annoying."
Oof.
And that really seemed to capture the feeling for a lot of people.
Okay, that's a major headache then. So given all this friction, this annoyance, how did the discussion move towards finding solutions? What kind of fixes were put on the table?
Well, yeah, they definitely explored solutions. From the viewer's perspective, a big one was the need for a granular settings toggle, something that lets you choose your preferred language tracks globally, like an option for always default to original audio, or maybe always play in English if available.
That makes sense, like a master switch.
Exactly. And another related idea was subscription-based defaults. So when you subscribe to a channel, maybe you could specify right then, always watch this creator in their original language.
Okay, that gives the power back to the viewer. What about the creators? What control do they need?
For creators, the really big ask is for optional auto-dubbing. Let them choose. They should be able to opt out completely, or at least have per-video control over whether dubbing is even offered. That's especially crucial for large, established channels where the audience has clear expectations about hearing the creator's actual voice.
Right, they've built that connection already.
Precisely. And alongside that, there's a need for just better interface transparency. Make switching languages obvious, immediate, intuitive, maybe even prompt the viewer the first time a dubbed track is available instead of hiding it deep in settings.
So beyond just the nuts and bolts, the technical fixes, the discussion also touched on some deeper stuff, right? Like the sociocultural context. Can you
Mm.
expand on that? How do language expectations differ, and how did the system maybe miss some of that nuance?
Yeah, this is a really critical point, I think. In many countries, especially outside the U.S., multilingualism is just normal.
Hmm.
Viewers might be perfectly fluent in English, even if they live in, say, India or parts of Europe or Africa. So automatically forcing content into a regional language like Hindi might actually reduce clarity or just not be what the viewer prefers. It can feel a bit presumptive.
So the system's making broad assumptions based on location or phone settings.
Exactly. It kind of ignores individual preference or the reality of multilingual fluency. It hints, perhaps, at a system designed from a more, let's say, American-centric perspective, where knowing multiple languages isn't quite as common day to day.
Interesting. And from the platform side, the engineering perspective, the fact that it's opt-out rather than opt-in seems key here too.
Yes, that inherently creates friction from the start. Making creators actively turn off something, especially when managing overrides per video or channel wide, is clunky, is just not ideal. And yeah, adding more viewer-level switches probably adds complexity to the code, but the source material strongly suggests it's pretty essential for a good user experience.
You know, it reminds me of that little aside in the source material about product names revealing cultural context. The El Pato sauce thing.
Oh yeah, that was a fun detail. Marquez mentioning he only realized later that el pato, the enchilada sauce, literally means the duck in Spanish.
Hence the duck logo.
Exactly. It just shows how even simple things like language can subtly shape our experience, sometimes in ways we don't even notice, kind of like this auto-dubbing feature defaulting based on assumptions.
That's a great parallel. Okay, so wrapping things up, considering everything we've dug into, should creators actually enable this auto-dubbing feature? What's the bottom line based on this discussion?
Well, like a lot of these things, the answer seems pretty nuanced. It's not a simple yes or no. For smaller creators, maybe ones focused on a specific region, auto-dubbing could genuinely be a growth catalyst.
Yeah.
It could help them reach totally new audiences.
Okay, potential upside there.
Definitely. But for larger established channels, there's a very real risk. You could end up disrupting or alienating loyal viewers who are really attached to the original voice, the original delivery. It's a trade-off.
So it's a calculated risk for bigger creators.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the strongest message coming through is give users more control and let creators define their own defaults.
Find that balance between global reach and respecting the audience.
Exactly. As that core thought from the source put it, this is a decent idea that won't be great until YouTube gives us more control. And connecting this to the bigger picture, it really raises a key question for you, the listener, to think about. As these AI translation tools get better and more common, how do we balance that drive for global reach and accessibility with the absolute need for individual user choice? And also respecting the creator's artistic intent. What other areas of technology might be facing these kinds of double-edged sword dilemmas? Where does automated assistance potentially clash with user control? Something to mull over.